Let us execute an immediate, sweeping analytical vector shift away from campus drug safehouses, undercover narcotic stings, and toxic domestic traps, and plunge straight into the high-octane, calculation-heavy tracking grids of calculated vigilantism, weaponized stranger exchange homicide loops, and the fiercely protective, dangerously fragile world of a targeted collection of raw trauma survivor and rogue retributive justice assets running a raw tactical survival loop. We are crossing the threshold directly into the hyper-monitored, paranoia-slicked parameters of a scorched, high-density New York City grid layout, exploring the lethal analytical parameters of a devastating, pact-driven execution matrix with kill for me, kill for you. The exceptional, pulse-pounding contemporary thriller and comprehensive retaliatory deception compendium engineered by the absolute undisputed global sovereign of breathtaking procedural secrets, razor-sharp narrative traps, and high-velocity structural friction, Steve Cavanagh. This high-stakes narrative tracking sequence delivers an exceptional look at an operational crossroads where an endangered primary grieving mother asset running an unyielding truth extraction loop, a calculating manipulative shadow network of a dangerous dark pact conspirator, and an absolute defense against an encroaching psychological collapse containment zone collide at terminal velocity. Let us map the strategic narrative grid. If you are an elite enthusiast of high-octane, slow-burn creative journeys where endangered, hyper-observant protective protagonists must navigate an absolute maze of rigged character perspectives, corrupt municipal alibi records, and a deadly ring of active personal deadline frame-ups while running a blind survival loop inside a completely compromised urban ecosystem where an analytical mind uses deep psychological profiling, calculated subway platform boundaries, and absolute emotional stamina to outmaneuver an invisible predatory executioner asset, weaponizing highly advanced societal prestige and gaslighting mechanics, and where the author utilizes an incandescent, meticulously paced vigilante gaslighting incubator tracking seemingly grieving allies who deploy advanced identity shielding and clandestine retaliation dossiers to systematically forge a seemingly innocent facade before crossing a terminal exposure milestone diagnostic routine to test our hero's structural limits. This book is engineered to lock you in. Cavanagh completely dominates the high-precision, unreliable narrative jeopardy meets suffocating narrative erasure puzzles dynamic, capturing the heart-racing intellectual momentum, suffocating blank-page paranoia, and heavy deductive depth popularized by genre vogues like Patricia Highsmith, Gillian Flynn, Lucy Foley, and Harlan Coben, while treating realistic baseline terminology logistics, complex dark possessive loyalty arcs, and protective high-density isolation extraction grids with absolute technical mastery. The narrative tracking grid zeroes in on the highly volatile, calculation-heavy baseline of our central legendary powerhouse creative assets, operating under a severe calculation-heavy handicap of a total loss of institutional safety networks, absolute structural liquidation logs, and a hyper-visible targeting canvas within a cutthroat metropolitan social matrix. Behind our dual protagonists Amanda and Wendy's raw grief-stricken footprints, defensive conversational shields, and sharp observation metrics lies an intricate matrix of hidden structural vulnerabilities, deeply buried survival instincts, and sharp, high-stakes tactical maneuvers. Their collective defense mechanisms are locked down tight following an abrupt plot outline deviation sequence, meeting at a dark support group and forging a modern strangers on a train covenant to execute each other's unpunished family tormentors. Their entire analytical focus strictly consumed by monitoring sudden threat vectors from a network of internal distraction forces, parsing complex behavioral shifts in their daily multi-POV interaction loops, and shielding their vulnerable personal sovereignty node from being entirely wiped out by a ruthless elite adversary offensive. The spark ignites when an unexpected high-frequency structural anomaly breaches their active scanning perimeter. While sorting through a series of routine daily tracking constraints, our primary assets register a total security breach when a parallel narrative thread involving a separate targeted home defense asset named Ruth initializes an irregular descent into active home invasion defense locks, systematically tracking hidden midnight residential movements, forbidden secondary keys, and unvetted survival history associations, forcing them into a proximity tracking matrix with an oncoming narrative resolution. Behind the wealthy Manhattan elite world's pristine, smooth aesthetic facade and elite behavioral mapping style lies an intricate matrix of severe ideological warfare and a cold, calculation-heavy target containment blueprint. As the hostile adversarial investigation phases enter an increasingly lethal terminal tier across a ticking clock timeline, the unauthorized discovery of missing historical truth templates, hidden intimate motivations, and altered architectural tracking templates reveals that their entire mutual murder sanctuary was an explicitly engineered trap.
The standard boundaries of routine civic courtesy and peaceful compliance protocols crumble, and our central protagonists run completely out of standard diplomatic escape vectors. They are thrust directly into an active, invisible war behind closed brownstone doors, where a highly manipulative psychological gaslighting matrix launches aggressive countermeasures to permanently suppress their survival data stream and execute their complete systemic erasure. The tactical parameters instantly explode as their social and survival warfare turns completely active, transforming the large entertaining spaces, dark subterranean subway tunnels, and private fortified residential rooms into a volatile psychological pressure cooker and a physical battle zone. Our protective, hyper-vigilant heroines are forced to deploy their massive intuitive tradecraft, elite behavioral mapping skills, and raw physical stamina to preserve their focus before their adversary's relentless, calculation-heavy proximity containment phase permanently deletes their boundaries. The threat vector remains purposeful and resolute, shifting dynamically through precise execution guidelines from past trauma assemblies to final present-day deadline escape loops across blistering perspective shifts, determined to deploy deep sensory manipulation loops, continuous psychological gaslighting via digital distraction maneuvers, and persistent dominance to shatter their defense, only to realize their hardened survival protocols and shifting counter-narratives match their opponent's raw tactical speed step for step. Every midnight archival excavation of personal legal journals, every silent choice to stand off against an electronic apex predator behind standard structural barriers, and every intense moment of channeling raw, unyielding survival mechanics chips away at their reliance on original peaceful rules. What follows is an exceptional high-stakes war of perspective, tactical position, and raw human grit. We watch the Predator Network's deceptive primitives completely unwrapped as Steve Cavanagh reveals that the true victory requires more than just surviving an initial week 1 ambush or managing an invasive spousal disclosure. It demands an absolute, uncompromising defense of individual dignity, personal truth, and systemic survival against a cold, calculating machine of domestic manipulation and absolute structural supremacy. While our central characters smooth over each other's psychological and defensive blind spots with devastating analytical force, creating a fiercely protective, absolute web of dark possessive loyalty around their building creative survival alliance, a brutal series of close-quarters tactical confrontations and high-stakes midstream point-of-view shifts switches the clock into its terminal phase, proving that deep-seated obsession has tracked them to their final outpost. To survive the impending Lockrid trap and permanently secure her sanctuary, our resilient protagonist must unleash an absolute, unyielding defense of her final boundary lines. It is a high-velocity vigilante psychological, absolute revenge noir, stranger exchange murder mystery, high-velocity contemporary puzzle masterpiece that treats deep relational logistics and intense structural friction with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We're talking about that high-frequency, one unreliable narrative lie triggers a fatal deadline showdown energy, where a sudden pause during an active franchise tactical briefing, an unexpected shift in an adversary's protective physical posture during a high-stakes standoff confrontation, or a heavy possessive realization that an elite intelligence operative has completely mapped your personal coordinates carries massive structural weight. Cavanagh writes with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, and beautifully blunt voice, perfectly capturing the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of a private executive vault before a major corporate outfall, and the distinct, subtle scent of rainy city asphalt, polished chrome revolvers, expensive townhouses, smartphone glare, cold sweat, dark adrenaline, and pure, unadulterated suspense. What truly elevates this contemporary instructional marvel into elite territory is the author's unmatched ability to balance complex, high-stakes relationship dynamics and genuine protective tradecraft alongside a breathtaking narrative pace and deep emotional hooks. Our protagonists don't rely on unbelievable, superficial Hollywood superhero action tropes. Their immense situational intelligence, strategic patience, and profound survival instincts match the complexity of the chaotic modern corporate and high society underworld they dominate step for step, making their choices to risk everything feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping. The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense conversational standoffs and breathtaking tactical breakthroughs before ratcheting up to an absolute jaw-dropping conclusion that delivers total, hard-earned advancement to their horizon. Kill for Me, Kill for You is the definitive pro-level upgrade your high-stakes contemporary thriller and intense asset suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely fast-paced, and utterly unputdownable. It proves that when your entire sanctuary is targeted by a cold, calculating institutional monster, the most revolutionary play you can execute is to lock your perimeters, trust your elite survival training, and fight like hell alongside your network to rewrite the data. So secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your emotional defensive perimeters, open your Kindle, and prepare to track the